So, do you have a countertop ice maker? Is that ice maker making a loud squeal sound when it's making ice? Well, right here we have a Gevi V2 countertop ice maker that's been working well for a while. Then it started the dreaded squeal sound. And I'm going to walk you through what I think is causing the squeal, how I think I might have fixed it, and at least give you an idea of where it might be. So as I walk through here, this might not be your exact model, but chances are the auger system for the ice are indeed identical. I've seen that for the GE Opal, for a few of the other ice makers you find on Amazon. This is, okay, let's see how to fix the squeal. Looking from the back of the ice maker on this Gevi, you'll start, there's two screws on the back side that need to be removed. Those screws I already removed those, as you can see, are right there. Once you remove those two screws, the top slides back, pops right off. Get that out of the way. So now we come back. Just like all the other ice makers, you have your cap right here, you have your auger system underneath here, and then you have your freezing core down here. This is your internal reservoir. This is where water comes from here into the ice machine to make ice. The water pump then takes water from inside the large reservoir, dumps it into this top reservoir, which then makes the ice. If you notice, you have two hoses coming off the back side. One hose is for the top reservoir. The other hose right here is for the main reservoir on the other side. If you hadn't wondered why there's two hoses, there you go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this apart, and I'll walk you through the steps really quick as I do it. Right here are two screws. One is located right there. The other one is located right there. Both those two screws come out. Those screws are these screws, if you can make it out. They just hold in place. Word of caution. Dealing inside this thing, all these are made in China. This is China plastic. These are China screws. These are China connectors. That means if you're going to use this, make sure it's on the lowest setting possible. And I actually recommend you don't. I recommend you use hand, because everything we're going to do is by feel. And if you use that, you're going to break it. You're going to over tighten something. You're going to over torque something. You're going to crack a lid. You're going to ruin something. So I recommend, if you want to use that to get rid of exterior bolts, that's fine. Other than that, no. I've already done this fix once before. Actually, I've done it 3 times so far. So people say, well, this is the 3rd time, and it's been working for a week now. So I'm going to say the first time it worked for about a month and then started squealing. The second time I did this, it worked. I tried something a little bit different, and I'll show you what I tried. It lasted for a day, and then it started squealing something fierce. And then the 3rd time I tried something different, and it's been working without a problem, with no noise whatsoever. So I'm just going to show you all the 3 things that I've done and how it seems to have worked. So here we go. So we already took the screws. I already took the 2 screws off right here, and I'm going to go ahead and remove these 3 screws right here and get down. I'm going to go ahead and mount this on a stand so I have an extra hand to work. Removed, plus these 2 down here are removed. Then this whole lid should pop up like this. There it is. Put that off to the side. Okay, so I'm just going to do it to show it another picture so you can see what I'm doing here. So here's one screw right here. Here's one red screw right here that has to come off. Eventually, these 4 have to come off as well. Now, this is the reservoir. What I do is I find it easier just to go ahead and pull in that tab, which is right there, which lifts this reservoir up, pull it out, set it off to the side. Now, there are some people out there that say, hey, you got to remove this whole reservoir right here, because if you look, this lip right here, let's see if I get a better view of it, that lip is on the inside of this plastic piece right here. So in order to remove this whole plastic dump bin, you have to remove this lid. Well, that's a pain in the ass. So what I'm going to do is just stick a screwdriver through. I'm going to show you how to bend it up like that. Boom. So now I'm going to zoom in so you can see. You see that lip right there? You're going to use a screwdriver right there. That's what it was holding in place. But This is all just, again, cheap Chinese plastic. Now, I didn't grab into it and pull it like I'm trying to lift Atlas, right? This isn't, putting, 1,000 foot-pounds of torque on a head bolt. This is just enough to go ahead and put that in here, and just enough to lift it. You notice just a little bit, pop it over that edge, which now exposes that edge. The next thing we have to do is remove 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remove those 4 screws. This whole plastic thing is going to come off. Let me go ahead and do that next. Okay, so I'm back. I just went ahead and undid these 4 screws actually I used my hand. This comes right out, lifts out. There we go. Put this off to the side. Now here's our little styrofoam insulator. Same thing before. That styrofoam insulator goes underneath here. You can see right there. But you can wiggle it out if you bend it out a little bit. What you don't want to do is try to break it. I'm trying to do this with one hand, which is difficult to do. There we go. I'm going to pull that out. There you go. Okay, so the 3 screws have been removed, and then this whole top piece pops off. Okay? Now remember, I just unplugged this. I just got started, so there's still ice in this unit, which you're not going to have. But here you can see actually how it works. That's the auger system down in here. This is the extruder head. Where did I put it? Right through here. This is the extruder head. So that auger, water goes inside this thing, comes up, freezes, gets forced. The auger forces the water into the extruder head, which forms these round things, which then fall out into your ice bin. In case you're curious, that's how it works. Okay, so this is the top header. We're going to pay close attention to this rubber gasket right here on the top piece, and we're going to clean this up the best we can off to the side for now. And then we have, this is the auger system right here. Ignore ice. Again, I was making ice, making sure it was working. Alrighty. So I removed the head. Now this is the auger part. And what I'm going to do is pull the auger out. Oh, I can't get a good grip on it because I lubed it up. You know what? I think it's frozen in there. There it goes. Okay. That's the bottom piece right there. And this is the auger unit. I'm going to set this right here for right now so you can see what this auger unit is. And this auger unit is a prime concern. Okay. So this auger unit right here slides in, and then you have this, which is this spring tension rubber gasket. And then you have this part that falls into the, as you can see right there, there's a groove in there for the adapter to fit in, which actually turns the auger, which is down there. Now you're asking, well, why is this thing discolored? Well, there's a reason for that, and I'm going to get to it as part of my answer. But now we're going to show you exactly what I think the squealing sound is. Okay, I took a whole bunch of Q-tips, took my isopropyl alcohol, Q-tips. Let's see, where is my Q-tips? Right there. That's all my Q-tips I used. And what I did is I tried to clean the best I can down in there in that auger system, all around the outer ridge. Again, take my screwdriver, see if I can't get it in here. All around this outer ridge, all the way around that outer ridge in here. And that's what I did. So that clean, and then I took the rubbing alcohol and paper towel, scrubbed the sides down of the entire inside of that auger wheel. Next, we're going to deal with the actual auger itself. Now, why are you asking me these are different colors? Well, let me move some stuff around so I can show you. Okay, so the squealing sound. Why does this look like a horrible thing? Well, I've been cleaning it several times because, of course, you always make a mistake. So when I took it apart the first time, I wanted to go ahead and lube everything up. And if you haven't noticed, which I'll see if I can do with one hand, this spring comes off. Just like that, which exposes this whole part right in here. I did notice there was quite of an embedded burr right in this area right here where it matches inside that auger. So inside the motor, as you can see right here, where the motor goes into that keyway, which turns it, That's right where all that gunk and everything else was building up that I just showed you that I cleaned out. Okay. The first time I rebuilt this, what I did is, I know everyone's going to start yelling at me, I just used my Molygraph, right? Multi-purpose grade 2 grease. And that's why this has sort of a greenish tint to it, because that was the first time I did it, and slowly the black has been bleeding out because I've been using different color grease from since then. So the first time is I just use my black Moly, and it's black. I use this stuff on basically everything. Now someone says, you're not supposed to be eating this. It's not good for you. And I'd say, I'm not taking spoonfuls of this stuff and shoving it down my gullet. Okay? It was just a light coating on these components right here to try to get a little bit of a lubrication going on, because I think the squeal, and I'll show you in a second, is actually when this thing is freezing, it's actually shifting back and forth inside that auger, and that's what this spring tensioner is for. You notice it collapses, and that collapsing up and down, with this going up and down in the sleeve, this auger going up and down in the sleeve is causing the squealing sound. So I did this. This lasted about a month, and then I started to get a low squeal coming back. Now, what's bad about this? One, Molygraph is not waterproof. Second, it's not the best grease. It's okay for high temp, but it's really poor for low temp stuff. And of course, this is an ice maker. So I went ahead and I took it all apart and I cleaned out the best I can. The problem is inside the sleeve, I put a bunch of grease down inside this guy down here, thinking that while this was riding up and down on the driving nut, maybe that was causing the grease. The sound. So I put quite a bit of grease down there, and it's very difficult to get down in that area to clean it out. So I did the first time, okay, lasted about a month, then it started to squeal again. I said, okay, that's not going to work. So I took everything out, I cleaned the best I could, although there's still some grease in there. You can't clean it all on the nooks and crannies, even using the isopropyl alcohol and using the Q-tips and using the paper towels. And anyways, so I took it all apart, cleaned everything up again, took this out to my polishing wheel, made sure it was clean, and I went ahead and I bought a food grade grease that I was told was waterproof right here, and got this off of Amazon. Took everything apart, cleaned everything up, took this grease, lubed up this shaft right here, lubed up this spring inside and out and all around, lubed up the bottom of the spring, which comes in contact with the bottom of that sleeve right there, lubed it all up, did everything I could to it, put it back together, lasted about 2 days, and then the squeal came back like, oh my goodness. Like it actually was worse. Okay? The squeal was worse. I'm like, oh, yeah. No, this didn't do it. So I went back to my roots growing up near the ocean. Everything rusts, plastic rusts. So I went to my local auto parts store and I got this grease right here, which is a waterproof marine grease. This thing is good. If I looked at the thing, I think it goes down to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfect since this thing's going to be stuck around 28 to 30 degrees to melt for ice to form. This is marine grade and it's waterproof. So what I did is I cleaned this whole thing up again, and this wasn't there. This was all shiny silver. Took the grease, greased this entire area all up in here, all around. All that got a cover of grease. Took this spring out, cleaned it out, took everything off. Then I went ahead and I slid it onto this shaft, and then I kept sliding it back and forth, and it's hard to show what it is. Now, another thing, if you notice quickly, not quickly, but you notice there seems to be a ridge on this side and a flat piece of rubber on this side. So when you look inside the sleeve in the ice machine, there seems to be a round. So you would think this part right here goes down. I don't know. That's the way it was installed, but I don't know if it was indeed correct or not, because it doesn't sink in. Like you would expect the ridge line of this to sink into that round oval to form a seal, and it doesn't. I took my micrometer out and measured it, and sure enough, the width of that seal right here, the width of that ridge line is bigger than the opening in the bottom of the sleeve of the ice machine. So it doesn't just like sit in, doesn't go like thunk and fit in. It actually rides up. And you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then I looked at this and I said, well, maybe, because I'm going to zoom in here, maybe this ridge line right here was meant to go against the bottom of the auger, so as this collapses right here, it keeps an extra distance from the edge where the metal is from hitting the bottom of the auger. I said, you know what? Again, I don't have any specifications. I don't have tech manuals. All I'm doing is looking at this from a garage mechanic, shade tree mechanics point of view. So what I did is I went ahead and I greased all this up, and I'm just going to smear the grease on it again. I'm not going to bother cleaning it up because I just did this the other time and it's good enough. And then I went ahead and I slid this spring back on, and then I'm going to take some more grease. If anyone knows, that's what the grease looks like. It's green, like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and smear it all over the shaft right in this area here. And just rub it all. And I'm going to put a little extra layer on the bottom of that rubber grommet. And I'm going to try to focus in on that rubber grommet if I can. There it is right there. Notice it's not the lipped side, it's the flat side that I'm putting down. So I'm going to go ahead and put a layer of grease all over that right there. And it's going to be kind of heavy as well. And then what I could do is move this spring further down because it's going to get it, take a little bit extra grease, throw some back on there, lube it up. I put some grease inside the spring area right in here, collapse this back down, reapply some grease down in here, grease it all up. As you can see, that's what it looks like at the bottom. I got some healthy amount of grease on the bottom of that rubber O-ring. And now I'm going to bring the ice maker back and we're going to go over the squealing sound. Okay, we're back. So I'm going to take this auger right here with the spring. I'm going to drop it back down into the sleeve, and I put the extra grease on the bottom of that rubber gasket, which is, I can't point it with a finger, right at the bottom of that rubber gasket right there. Put some extra grease in. I'm going to set it down into the slide right here until it seats down. Now, this is it right here. This is the kit and caboodle. If I take this and you notice, I could push down. It's that spring collapsing and coming back up again. Let me try to zoom in so you can see when I push down, it compresses. I release, it pops back up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. That's to account for the ice expanding in it. Now, this is where I think the issue lies. When you put this lid back on right here, this is the extruder cap. I don't know if I could show it to you, but trying to get a good angle. Watch this. Notice how it collapses down? So when you tighten this down, it actually pushes the auger down. It collapses that spring. So now, this is what I think happens with this, right? And I've done this this is my 4th time rebuilding it. When I put the bolts in, oh, by the way, I also lube the bottom of this O-ring in the green waterproof, right in that area. Make sure the ring is in, that rubber O-ring is in there. I also put a thin layer of grease around here, just like that. So the O-ring can make a good seal, but I've noticed when I tighten down these screws, the previous times I was doing them, and I put a bit of force into them, the noise always came back, and it seems like there's a torque issue with this. The last time I put this together, and I'm going to show you, I put those screws in, but I didn't tighten them down. I didn't apply a lot of torque to those screws. I basically got it snug to the hand tight and then did an 1/8 of a turn, and that's it. Because what I think what happening is they were over torquing these bolts, which was driving this further down into that, pushing the auger further down, collapsing that spring, taking away some of the movement that spring has. So when the ice formed, it didn't have enough movement because this was cranked down, pushing that auger down in there, and there was nowhere for the auger to go, and that's when it starts to squeal. So I think what they did is they over torqued these nuts going, these screws, I'm sorry, they over torqued these screws going back in. As you can see, when it sits there, it's not, the spring pushes up. You got to push down in order for that to collapse. So I'm going to show you how I did this so you get an idea. So I'm going to use a socket, but I'm going to use my hand to tighten this socket down, right? So I'm going to turn it until I feel it snug. Just snug, right there. It just tightened up. And then I took it, right, and I'm looking at this right here, right? I then took it and I did 1/8 of a turn. Boom, that's it. That's as tight as I made this. So I'm going to put the other screw in, back in. I'm going to take my socket with my hand, turn it down until it turns snug, which is right about there. Right there, right? Just that right there is snug. I'm going to take it, I'm going to turn it about 1/8 of an inch. That's it. I'm not going to crank it down. I'm not going to do anything else. And I'll do the third one right here. Get that out of the way. I'm going to turn that. There it is. It's snug right there. I'm going to turn it about 1/8. That's it. I'm not going to crank down on this. I'm not going to use, a torque wrench on this thing, right? I'm not going to, I don't know if even it's a foot-pound of torque on those bolts. Nuts, screws, whatever you want to call them now at this point in time. And that's it. That's as much tension as I put on those screws going back in. Is you make them snug, and once they're snug, hand turn about 1/8 of the turn, and that's it. And you're going to be, and when you do it, you're going to be like, dude, no, that's not tight enough. This thing's going to leak all over the place. And I'm telling you, that rubber gasket, remember there's that rubber gasket on the bottom of this guy, plus the layer of grease. What makes the seal is not this plate. What makes that seal is that rubber gasket, right? So that rubber gasket has some give in it. So all you're trying to do is make sure that rubber gasket is flat against the metal plate. That's all it is. That rubber gasket stops the leak. That's it, not this plate. So all you need to do is make sure that rubber gasket has a firm seal all the way around the outside. That seal helps, one, with the grease, because the grease fills in all the little nuances within the rubber, and then you just tighten it down so the rubber gives a nice little, just like that, just a little bit of smush to make that a perfect seal. You don't have to torque it down. These aren't head bolts, on a motor, right? This isn't, something under huge amounts of strain that you got to tighten this thing down. It's just the ice maker. So now I'm going to put all this back together again. Now that I have this together like this, the next thing that goes in is the styrofoam. That styrofoam goes in like this. Then I got the drain, then I got the cover, then I got that cover. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this and start putting this back together. Okay, so all I did again was pull this up so it cleared the bottom lip right there. Just bent it up just a little bit. There, put it this way. Bent it up just a little bit to fit over that lip. Now that lip is in. This thing is down right here. I'm going to grab my screwdriver. Not going to use that. This is tightening. I'm going to go ahead and stick this in. I'm going to tighten down these 4 screws inside this guy, and I'll be right back when I'm done tightening. Okay, now we're going to see this thing in action. Again, that's the top filler pump filled up with water. This thing is now turned on and it's running. Right there, it is making ice. As we could hear, there is no screaming and wailing going on right there. And I think I just heard some ice drop in it. And the first couple nuggets are on their way out. And there is no squealing of any sort coming from the box. So I'm going to consider this thing done at this point in time. At least repaired for now until if it does start squealing again. I hope it doesn't. We just had another nugget drop down. But I consider this fixed. And a few other things I wanted to touch base on this as well. There's an auto water feed on the back side of these. I highly recommend you use them. Right back in here is where I have my ice maker. And I have my main line coming in right there, which then feeds the ice. And I have it on one of these. This is just a garbage. Have you ever seen those kitchen garbage slides? That's exactly what that is. And I just set it on top of there, put the water power into it. And I could hear this thing dropping some more stuff down. You got some more ice coming in and no noise whatsoever. So the last thing I'm going to do is put the lid on this, put the 2 screws back in the backside. Other than that, I re-put the screws over here, over there, tighten down these 3 right there. The rest of that you saw on earlier in the video. And put the lid back on. Make sure you don't pull these wires or damage any of those wires. And for all that is holy, don't use a power tool to tighten any screws on this thing at all. Everything you do on this, if you're taking it off, use a power tool. If you're putting it back on, don't use a power tool. Grab a hand tool, tighten it down till it's snug, and once it's snug, only go about 1/8 of a turn beyond that. You don't want to torque this stuff down because you're going to crack the plastic, you're going to crack the plastic, you're going to over torque the bolts. You're going to do all kinds of bad stuff. Again, so use hand. Here it is, it's running. You can see it's dropping some ice down. I'll let this ice fill up this first time. Dump the ice, clean out the water, put it to its mounting, hook up the water line to it, let it fill up a second time, let it regenerate another bucket full of ice, dump that ice, and then that's the point in time where you could go ahead and start using the ice from this. Hopefully that might help. If you have questions, put them in the comments and down below. If I could answer them, I will. Enjoy, and hopefully your ice machine stops the dreaded squeal of death.